Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in one more time to the Like Attracts Like podcast. This is episode number 4. I'm your host, Pat Mahan. This episode is going to deal with something near and dear to my heart. It's a concept and also a book that helped me out of some of the most difficult times in my life. And it's also something that I try to focus on every single day and really applies a lot of the messages and concepts that we talked about in the first 3 podcasts and tries to tie it all together as to how you can live a better life now, which is really kind of all we are trying to do. So it's called The Power of Now, and the book is also called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and we are going to get into it right after this.
Take a look at life from a different perspective. What if life is happening for you and not to you? This is the Like Attracts Like podcast with your host, Pat Mahan.
You may have seen some of these memes or sayings in your social media experience or in books. Things that say, stop judging your past, you don't live there anymore. Live in the moment, all you have is right now. And on the surface, I think a lot of people read them, and maybe for a moment it's inspiring and it can cause you to be a little bit more present and aware. But for the most part, what happens is moments after you are trying to become present and aware, your mind kicks in and your thoughts take over and your ego tries to stuff down your throat all the gazillion reasons that you stored in your subconscious as to why you shouldn't live in the present, because there's so many other things to worry about. There's so many other things to think about. There's so many other situations from your past that you need to focus on and either fix or heal or attend to, and all of this is going to take mental space, which is why you can't focus on your now. And if you don't have a lot from your past that you need to fix or focus on, well then guess what? There's more than enough stuff to worry about in the future because you had different plans. You wanted things to go a certain way. You aren't hitting your deadlines. You're not where you wanted to be when you were this age. You wanted to be married. You wanted to have a house. You wanted to have this. There's all of these other things that you can go and focus on in the future that will allow you to not stay present in your moment. So we're so either fixated on living in our past and the judgment of the situations that we've experienced, or we are switching gears and we're heading into the future and projecting fear and anxiety about a version of you that doesn't exist yet and situations that haven't manifested themselves yet. This is what I like to call the happiness paradox, because everyone is trying to live somewhere which they are not. They're either living in the past and bringing that into the present moment, or they are worried about the future and bringing that into the present moment. So what I'd like to do is kind of explain a little bit about how badly I did this for the longest time, because let's face it, it could be extremely overwhelming when you can't get out of your own head and you believe that your thoughts are actually you and you identify with your thoughts, and you can't get out of past situations running over in your head and then the judgment of them. And you can't escape the anxiety from the constant reminders in your head that you are not where you thought you should be, or worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, but the what ifs. Living out the worst case scenarios in your brain because you feel like it's preparing you for them, when in fact it's just simply either bringing them to your reality or keeping you in a vibration where you're just going to be aware of the worst case scenarios in every situation that you come into. So in order for this to really change your perception on life, or this to work, for it to begin to allow you to be more present in the moment and allow things to unfold more naturally, there's a couple things that you'd have to be on board with, and those were mentioned in the first 3 podcasts, and I'm going to bring them up again right now because they really are fundamentally some things that I believe are true without fail, although it took me most of my life to be able to overcome my story and my victim mentality that everything was happening to me to embrace this. So if you are, I understand that people who are searching for answers and are in a negative state of mind, and most of the time it's rightfully so, well justified, in a hurting and dark place, it's difficult to listen to the message in this podcast and embrace it. As a matter of fact, it'll have the exact opposite effect. You could rebel against it, and it could drive you even deeper into a more negative state. And I've been in that state for most of my life, so I can tell you that I'm with you. I understand with my own story. I understand what it feels like to have that inside of you and not be able to release it. But I'd like to try and share these things that worked for me, and maybe it will work for you. And if nothing else, maybe it'll be a seed planted that in a future moment you can fall back on and revisit. So the first thing that you would have to embrace, and not just as an idea, but an absolute knowing, is you have to understand in your life and the way that this world unfolds that everything does happen for a reason, regardless of our ability to see it at the time or our resistance to the moment where something that we don't want to happen is happening. When something unwanted happening, and that could be a decision that we're making or a tragedy, the loss of a loved one, a catastrophic event, these are all things that encompass reasons as to why we would rebel against the fact that everything happens for a reason, because most of the time we, with our minds, there's no understanding of why certain things happen. We can't understand it. We don't know what the global picture is. We don't know what the universal picture is, but we have a mind that can compare things to other things and can make judgments and can feel emotion based on those judgments, and that can spark emotions that are unwanted and will absolutely distract us from being able to be fully present in the moment that you're in. I've experienced both severe loss in my life, and I've also made decisions in my life coming from a place of absolute insecurity and low value and self-worth and self-image, and I've made decisions to try to fill that void that have just absolutely had at the time such a dramatic perceived negative impact on me. So I've been subject to both of that would make one really rebel hard against the everything happens for a reason. So again, this isn't about lying to yourself about the past or choices or situations. It's not about ignoring them. It's not about suppressing the pain and anger or frustration that they caused, because all that does is cause energetic blocks, and you'll remanifest them in your life, because I believe that that's how this works. I believe that whatever you hold on to, you identify with, and then you're going to see more of it in your life. You're going to repeat your pattern. So this isn't my attempt to tell you to try to ignore or be naive about your past and the effects that it's had on you. It's more of the process that I went through in order to understand certain things about the past, what I believe it was meant for, that with me as those fail-safes, with those as my check systems in place, when I tried to revisit the negative thought process I had about past situations, this would stop me from doing it, because I already know that I believe certain things about our past situations and what they were meant for. So therefore, when I'm in a current state, I won't allow those thoughts to come in, because I've already dealt with them and found a proper perspective on them. So essentially, one of the things that I had to do was, in some of my worst moments and darkest times, to try to fight through this, I had a piece of paper and a pen, and I would go from as far back as I could remember and write down all the significant things that I knew my inner dialogue was running over and over and over again in my head. And I would put them on a piece of paper so that I could see them. Because I think what happens a lot of times, if we don't write things down, then our brain repeats them, but we don't remember or keep track or count of how many times it does that. So it just keeps the same emotion, and we don't even start identifying the thoughts anymore that are causing the emotion. We just feel it, and we just let the thoughts run wild. So after you write them down, see if you can go back on any of them, and in hindsight, try and find some type of a positive thing that came out of the situation that when you were in the moment, you didn't ever see either getting past, evolving from, growing from, or even maybe being grateful for in that moment. See if you can go through any of the things that you've written down and really honestly find the positive perspective that could not possibly have been reached in the moment of you experiencing it. If you can do that with some or any of them, that is a huge win, because the next time that negative thought pattern comes into your brain, you will have developed a check system that will put that thought into perspective and find the positive thing that you know came out of it. And it won't allow that pattern to be repeated. So that's where a lot of the work is internally, to grow from past experiences that we haven't been able to put into proper perspective. It might be beneficial, at least it was for me, to write them down, to look at them, and really objectively see if I could find some positive thing that came out of them. And I will tell you from my own personal experience that I was able to do it with every single thing that I struggled with in my life. I was able to really be honest and see where my fault lied with something, or where, if it was something that was out of my control, where I could find some type of gratitude for the time that I had or the experience that I was given. And I'll tell you that for most of them, this was never something I thought I could do. I was blocked for a really, really long time. So for me, it made all the difference to be able to get out of the past and not to continue my past patterns by reliving these situations that I kept focusing on and lamenting. And hopefully maybe it'll work for you. Definitely let me know if you have any success with that. So we're making headway. We're moving right along as far as the process to be able to live in the now, live a better, fuller life in the moment. Step one is realizing that you are separate from your thoughts. You're the one who is aware of your thoughts. And by that fact alone, by being the watcher of them, they hold way less power over you than they do when you feel like you are your thoughts and that you're just the victim of whatever continues to run in your brain and the incessant chatter of negative, judgments and patterns. When you realize that you can escape that by realizing you're the watcher of them, it takes the power away and it allows you to really objectively view and grow from your past experiences and your thought patterns. Step two, now that you're able to view your thoughts with a little bit less emotional gravity, you'll be able to revisit your past scenarios and situations that you play over and over in your head in a negative fashion, and you'll be able to revisit them and put a more positive perspective on them and try to find things that you may even be grateful for. And by doing this, this will keep you from allowing those thoughts to perpetuate over and over in your head, causing you to live in the negative emotion from the past. So when you realize that we're not supposed to live in that emotion, that your past scenarios were lessons in one way or another to either find gratitude or to evolve from, then you can find peace with that being your bottom line check system. Everything happens for a reason. You've become comfortable with that enough that when these past stories pop up in your head, you can put them to bed right away, and you can begin to focus more on the present moment. The third thing that we're going to talk about is the future piece of the puzzle, and that is the voice that is constantly comparing where you are now to where you think you should be. Now, the beautiful thing about this voice, lives in the future but compares things to where you are, is it seems to be a derivative of your past voice, because if you focus on your past, then you don't have the time in the moment to put your energy into the things that you want in life. You will continuously seem to experience and attract things that represented your past situations because you're living in that emotion, and then that will create this gap between where you want to be and where you are. So the beautiful thing about this is that while focusing on the first part and diminishing the attachment and the hold that the past situations, emotions, and heaviness or judgment has kept you, you are essentially almost at the same time are going to be able to silence the voice that keeps comparing you to this future version of you that doesn't exist yet. Because you will have more time and you'll be in a more positive state of mind. You'll be able to easily identify the things that you want out of life instead of blaming the old version of you for not being there or creating that. And you'll see how this all kind of fits this spiral pattern of forgiving yourself for your past scenarios that have allowed you to learn the lessons you need to be more present in the moment. Then, using the moments that we have, you apply your energy into identifying what you want, and then you'll be inspired to create that, which will then lessen the gap again between the version that you want to be and the version that you are right now. Understanding, believing, knowing that as you take care of the present moment, as you become still and aware that you're the observer of your thoughts, not the victim of them, you begin to take a control over your life, your reality, and the future that you were once so scared of. You understand that now the separation between the observer and the story of you will allow a freedom for your true soul to communicate with you the purpose for your being here without the clutter and clatter of a story in a world that's been essentially promoting a negative vibration to anyone who will listen to it. Not only will you be able to have a better connection with your higher self and your heart and your energy centers that will allow you to more easily navigate the world that we're in, but it will also allow you to be a little bit more present and aware of all the beautiful things around you, all of the little synchronicities that happen every day. If you are just willing and open to the process, letting go of the attachments of needing it to be a certain way and allowing it to unfold naturally. Think about how boring your life would be if you knew how every day was going to go, and if you knew how every single thing was going to come to you and when, it would be ridiculous. There would actually be no purpose to a life like that. Similar to those that feel that there's no purpose to not knowing or not understanding the reason that things unfold the way that they do. It's a paradox of sorts that essentially you're unhappy when you don't get what you want, and in this case, you're equally as unhappy when you do get what you want. The hamster wheel is coming from a place of unhappiness and believing that that happiness exists in a future moment in an external circumstance. So we chase them, and we chase the potentiality of that happiness and the feeling that we identified with a happiness from a state from a previous version of us. And then we achieve it and we get it, and moments later it's empty, more empty than you ever could have imagined it would be. And that's because the mind keeps tricking us into thinking that happiness exists outside of us, but it can't, because it's subjective for each person's experience. We identify our happiness based on what we feel we need will give us the emotion of happiness and a sense of fulfillment. But when you understand, if you can go through this process to even some way realize that the happiness emotion didn't come from an external thing that you labeled in your life, but it came from allowing you to be present and experience whatever moment you're identifying with as that happiness. It didn't come from the thing. It's never the thing. It comes from your conscious decision to allow that thing to open your heart. When you realize you can allow that without the external stimulus, that you can allow that by sitting still, separating from your thoughts and being present, then happiness becomes anything you want it to be. Happiness becomes a state instead of a goal or an achievement or a prize. It becomes the state that you are centered in. And then from there, that vibration will attract better things to your life, to your view. And in that moment, when you can be present to the moment without your thoughts interrupting it or running a narrative to a movie that you can get up and walk out of, you are not the character in the movie. You awaken to the fact that you're the one watching it. Use these check systems as a logical pathway to just help you with the ultimate goal. So what are we all trying to do? If everyone is trying to be happy or fulfilled or find their purpose, when is the only time that someone can be happy, feel fulfilled, or find their purpose? The only time that could possibly happen is right now. There's no other time than right now, and there never will be. The past has happened. It is a series and sequence of events that we use to grow and evolve and learn lessons for no other reason than to help us in the moment we are in, which is all we have. The future exists as hope and possibility of what our future moments can be when we apply our full presence to the one that we are in. And when we can do that, and we are free from our thoughts and our judgments and our limitations from a past self that was only there to serve us lessons to be more present now, then we lose the anxiety of a future that we need to be a certain way in order for the victimized version of ourself from our past to be okay. It's a true freedom when you're allowed to live fully in the moment. It is something that has to be consciously dealt with and navigated every single day. It's not something that just happens. It's something that you have to move and flow with. And you'll have good days and you'll have bad days. But the difference between the good days and bad days when you're aware of this process is that the bad days you're no longer a victim to. You're no longer the subject of the abuse of the universe. You understand the purpose and the guidance system and the evolutionary process of what you're going through. You can allow your full attention in it, feel it, so that you can navigate where to go next. In closing, I'd like to just give you the example. Think of a GPS on a car. You type in an address 300 miles away. It comes up with the final destination. No one needs to know every step of the way, every road, every turn with your GPS system to get from where you are to where you're going. You trust and allow that the GPS on your phone is going to give you the next step when you come to it so that you can enjoy the road that you're on. I believe the universe works the exact same way. And I believe that we're all going to end up getting to our destination if we allow and trust our own internal GPS system, our own emotions, and our own soul to guide us in the moment to where we're supposed to be. Guys, thank you so much. This has been my favorite one so far. I've really enjoyed this. I appreciate all the messages and all the comments, everyone reaching out. This has been pretty awesome. So we're going to continue to drop every Thursday. Again, we do have guests coming on. This is going to be something that we're going to be looking to do for a long time. If you can and you like this video, share it with anyone who you think will listen or anyone who could benefit. And again, we're always looking for more topics. So once again, have a great day and amazing tomorrow, and we'll see you next time.